Hi, I'm Dan Perry. Welcome back to my Master of Science dissertation, The Hiding Curriculum Towards the Development of LGBTQ+ Curriculum in Higher Education. Today we're looking at querying curriculum, interruptions, disruptions, gaps and silences, my theoretical lens. This means how I'm looking at information and how I'm interpreting it when I find and write about it. There's no overview of these slides because they're a continuous flow of ideas which aren't meant to be separated into segments. So here we go. I am primarily using a queer theoretical approach to this extended literature review on LGBTQ+ curriculum in higher education. I believe that Halberstam is correct when arguing that queer studies can have a multi-directional stance. I think this allows the researcher flexibility to approach issues from multiple directions and opens new avenues of thought. Halberstam supports this notion as they argue queer studies is interdisciplinary in nature and it can move across academic schools and institutions. Additionally, I believe, as Halberstam does, that because queer theory's multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach, it can disrupt the logic of coherence by mixing methodologies and approaches to study. Furthermore, this disruption can reorganize knowledge as a result of mixing from across disciplines and, in the process, create different avenues of study. In my extended literature review, I hope that I will be able to disrupt the reader's construction of knowledge and logic towards LGBTQ+ curriculum in higher education. I have found Colin Charlton's 2018 idea of queerness useful. Queerness they describe as being a space between the not yet and the promissory. I think that I would position this research in queerness because it's not meant to be a finished text. It is not yet finished, but in development, that allows scope for the promissory of LGBTQ+ curriculum in higher education. I therefore propose that by querying curriculum, interruptions, disruptions, gaps, and silences occur. Samara and Davis, 1999, argue as I do that by interrupting heteronormativity, it becomes a way of expanding perceptions, developing cognition, and enhancing learners' imagination. I agree that queer curriculum theory should be about understanding and interrupting perceived differences between people. However, by doing this, curriculum should queer identity categories, but explore how different circumstances construct identity experiences. I believe that queer research attempts to foster different habits of thought and feelings to accepted norms and knowledges. Further, I agree with Allen and Rasselman, 2003, that queer theorizing cannot ignore its foundations in ideas around sexuality and revolution. I divert from Rasselman slightly, however, on the history of these ideas and their ways in which they are embedded. As I argue in the first chapter of this research, time and timelines are normative structures that need to be challenged. Queer research can offer frameworks that seek to create space by highlighting the messy and chaotic indices across theory, lived experience, and practice. I do not see this study into LGBTQ+ curriculum and in higher education as a conclusive one, nor did I set out with any end goals in mind. Rather, like Colin Charlton 2018, I've seen this as an opportunity to experiment, take risks, and explore ideas. In addition, I believe that as Allen and Rasselman 2015 do, that queer theory and all research is limited when it appears to know what answers the researcher seeks in advance. This means that at times there are potential gaps and silences within this study. These are meant to encourage further debate and fuel ideas to expand and construct new knowledges in the field of LGBTQ+ curriculum in higher education. In exploring the literature, I've encountered what Colin Charlton 2018 have called troubling moments, and I've found that question, how do we stay in the moment that trouble creates, and how do we respond to the challenges of these moments useful? I've not been able to separate myself from the text, and at times have made me become vulnerable and inactive, where I've needed some time to consider my own positionings and my feelings. I feel, however, this has been a productive process, even though at times I've felt isolated and disconnected. It has allowed me to become more reflexive by dwelling on these issues for a few days. Colin Charlton support the idea that through Judith Butler of dwelling in discomfort because they believe it has the potential to expand modalities of thinking. I consider Colin Charlton 2018 are correct in explaining that by encouraging self-reflexivity and dwelling upon things, it allows me to move beyond my own self-reflections to implicating myself in ideas, processes, and systems explored in this paper. I further believe that McLean's 2018 use of the idea of disidentification particularly useful whilst implicating myself in the paper. McLean explains disidentification as the act of situating oneself both within and against the dominant discourses of a disempowering neoliberal and hetero-homonormative culture. However, as I've already said before, I seek to be radically subversive and expand on Colin Charlton's 2018 ideas to challenge all normativity rather than creating a binary by disrupting heteronormativity by seeking non-heteronormative practices. Instead, I propose to deconstruct, interrupt, and interject where all normativity occurs as part of the curriculum, classroom, or higher education. However, it needs to be accepted that queer theory can actually replicate the hierarchies it seeks to challenge and undo. To challenge normalcy and hierarchy in queer theory, research needs to be continuous and thought-provoking questions about its limits need to be asked. By legitimizing queer theory, it allows a certain freedom of disciplines and variations of methods, but in its legitimization, it does not always create the equality it seeks. It can actually replicate existing power structures. I acknowledge I do create power structures by acknowledging that they exist, but then I seek to challenge and disrupt it by recommending methods and ideas that could be used. These recommendations could be replicated, but I believe that they would not become one-dimensional and hegemonic, as in every classroom would provide differing results. Thank you for joining me. Next time we start exploring the main body and first chapter of my research, called It's About Time, LGBTQ+ Curriculum Development in Higher Education, the Curriculum and Curricula as Chronobiopolitics. Don't worry, it will all be explained as we go on, I promise. See you again soon. Bye.